the best match with, if you're fortunate enough to have more than one option, right? How do you test, is this a good match for us? What are you looking for?
Well, they start with, are you aligned on the priority in the project? But I found the key beyond that is really trust. Does the engineering lead trust our engineering lead? Does the biz dev lead trust our biz dev lead? Do I, because the startups, they don't have everything documented. We certainly don't know all the processes the way, Verizon or Univision does their thing. We're not, it doesn't help them for us to learn that stuff, right? There needs to be a level of trust that we can communicate at a high bandwidth without necessarily all the paperwork. And if the trust isn't there, then it really turns into a shitload of overhead, so to speak. So that's, to me, the key difference.
I think that's really important because, once we're working with a small company now doing just a pilot on news video recognition, kind of AI around putting data to actual video and what we cover in the news versus what we think we cover. We're doing some stuff on commerce and a couple other things. And once we establish a partnership, my strategy is it's internal. They're literally part of the team. And so that trust is really important, because if you don't trust the people you just sign a partnership with, then that's
exactly right. We get to be the cowboys. So and the people in the corporate that appreciate that it's nice to have cowboys on the team, then it really works well.
What about the sort of the other half of that, right? So what's hard about working with corporates when you're being innovative?
What's hard about working with corporates, I think, one, we should be cognizant too, let's pick the right corporates for our business, right? So in my new startup I just described, does Univision really have a business around virtual events and webinars? Probably not. So I'm not going to try to sort of force that in there. But, I look at Samsung Next and delivery of our events on smart TVs, and I look at Google and delivering on Android TVs, to be specific. Those are ones I'd probably pursue in this year's program in terms of partnerships. And then I'd ask of them, be truthful. Do you find this interesting? Is this valuable to your, Android TV ecosystem? If so, can you, be responsive to us? I mean, I'm not going to, you can push back, of course, if I'm emailing you every day, but, once a month, if there's a check-in, we would ask that the corporate sort of give us that time and be the occasional resource for us and give us honest advice, so we're making, we have limited resources, by definition of being a startup, right? So we're making a bet in our corporate partner as well.
Yeah, so that's a great segue into, when you look in the mirror as a corporate partner, what's on your self-assessment list of, we appreciate that this is what's hard about working with a corporate when you're in that mode that you just described of, the dollars aren't infinite, the timeline is infinite. What do you see as the things that probably make it hard to partner with you when you work with startup?
Yeah, so a lot of it's just around the size. We have 150, 160,000 employees, and it's hard to, I don't know everyone in the company. It's hard for me to reach out to people and get their focus when they may be focused on something else. If I'm trying to connect the startup with, another stakeholder. We're big, and compared to startups, we move slowly, and it's very deliberative when we are making decisions. So you just have to recognize that. I think I probably need to do a better job in communicating with startups to, sort of set expectations that, because we talk today doesn't mean in 2 weeks we're going to have a deal. So I think it works both ways, having some expectation on the startup side, but I think also the corporates need to set expectations properly.
Yeah, the decision about who you partner with is actually much more important than our decision about who we partner with. Because you guys got to make the right choice about the right partners, because it could be, an existential decision. And so I would just make sure, I like to make sure before we commit that I have someone on my team who's dedicated, that we commit to, some sort of reoccurring, process around, hey, we're going to meet every week, or here's exactly what we're going to test over this timeline. If you stick to that level of structure, at least you don't end up with this floating, we're doing something or we're not, like, what exactly we're doing, what timeline. It's a pilot, it's a phase one, it's a whatever, and then from there we're all going to step back, reassess, did it work, did it not, and if we put some structure around it and we're disciplined about making sure that we meet the commitment we met to you guys, then it usually may not work out, but at least we get to the end of the road and we know, hey, we tested it and move on. So that, I think that's important.
And I think when we make an ask, we should consider starting with a sort of a bite-sized, a manageable ask, right? Let's get a run on the board, or whatever analogy you want to use, before we ask to be your global partner of whatever. Let's I hate to use the word pilot, but let's pick something that's manageable and sort of execute against that. And sometimes, even if it's just that one project in startup world, that might be good. And maybe we have a bunch of corporate partners that we're doing small to medium-sized initiatives, right? I mean, we don't necessarily need a several $100 million Verizon Ventures investment to have success, right?
Well, yeah, if you can make the Western sales region work well, the Eastern's going to be interested, right?
Well, the other thing I was just saying is, the thing I like about kind of my level in the organization, being in local media, which is just our radio and TV stations, is that we have direct access to stations. So if I walked in with a sales product or a news product or something that is ready to be tried and tested, that literally rolled out in a market, I can go to one of several general managers and say, hey, here's this product, here's what it does, and if it's interesting, someone will say, yeah, let's do it. And so testing something in a small way and then kind of figuring out exactly what works, what doesn't, and then improving it before you expand to something naturally. That I like that a lot about our structure, because you can fail fast, or things can improve and then expand, and then eventually we kind of graduate it up to national network, and we go do something else. So,
talk about a little more, maybe how important is it for the startup that brings the idea to the table, an idea initially, but then just the process you described in terms of how important is it on the corporate side that your partner is willing to have that return path of feedback and tweak, right? Because the initial, I'm guessing, how often is it that the initial framing doesn't actually turn out to be quite where the business really goes, and that sort of return path of product feedback from the corporate partner to the startup?
Yeah, I think that's super important to have that sort of feedback loop where, the startup's working on a problem. It may go in a different direction than you originally anticipated, and that you're adjusting, and you keep doing that feedback loop and developing on top of that loop. I think that's how you get success in the project.
And that's really where some of the horror stories are too. Like a good example is when I was working in IP video initially, and it was ISDN video was entrenched, and trying to partner with companies that would say, yes, we want to do IP video, because, not that it's going to take over the whole business or everything, but you get in there and frankly, you have the right view of the world, but there's such an an entrenchment on ISDN, you can't really make progress because there's so much fighting going on, sort of negative energy because of the new technology on the line. And so that you can't, it's very difficult to get around that.
Yeah. So how do you guys? So that's a great point. Like, how do you manage sort of on the internal side? Somebody may be disrupted by your startup partner, but it's a disruption you may recognize needs to happen.
Some of those fights you're not going to win, even if it's the right thing to do, and you just got to recognize that. What helps us is usually there's a translator. So the startup has the technology or something or a solution, and there's someone who's working with the startup who comes from my world, who may be a broadcast person or a radio person or understands, events, and can come and have that conversation from kind of my perspective. And so that usually helps because they can frame, what they're bringing, what problems they're going to solve with credibility or just a little better communication, because I probably don't understand all the details of what you're...
But you don't need to fend off the negative Nellies on your side of the fence, right?
Yeah, but if you have someone who has kind of that, my business street...
Yeah, that helps a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I like the whisperer, the disruption whisperer. Right? So on that note, where is that happy medium in terms of communication cadence? I'm suspecting that the startup, I mean, it's the only thing going on, and you're like probably wanting, hey, at the corporate side, you might have 20 things going on in parallel. Where is that happy medium that's not super annoyingly frequent, but the corporate's engaged enough? Like, how do you navigate, how have you navigated that in a way that everybody's kind of getting their information needs met?
Well, the classic way to do it is to have team meeting, on the phone, regularly scheduled. Not necessarily once a week, right? And not everyone, right? But enough so that and it's informal in some respects too. It doesn't have to be a rigid agenda, but basically keep the communication flowing. Try to save, random stuff for that, as opposed to pick up the phone or send the email. And then of course try to stick to some sort of schedule, right?
I like to push. I like to push the partnership or the whatever we're trying to accomplish down to the lowest level. So if we're going to test a product that's news analysis related in LA, then push that directly to the news folks, the news director, the LA general manager, and execute the project at that level. Instead of me trying to keep track of all that, they'll come back and say, hey, it worked, it didn't, here's what we learned, it was great, it wasn't. And so the more we kind of assign operational owners for these partnerships and solving specific problems, then everything just executes better because I'm not trying to manage 10 different things myself. So I like to push it down to an owner and make sure that they, we have a kind of a scheduled report back.
Well, we're running out of time. I think we should go to the marriage counseling phase of our program. And this advice is free. So I would love to have each of you talk a little bit. Imagine your target audience for corporates, right? Startups who may be in the audience. If you could give advice on how to be a great partner, and maybe just a couple of pitfalls to avoid, what would that advice be?
Is this advice for corporates or for startups?
From a corporate partner to potential startups.
I would say be transparent, be very, listen, right? Because I find it really hard to believe that any company is going to walk in with the perfect solution for
first time.
Right,
like just nailed it.
You may find something else that's different or that works better. You may discover a whole marketplace of problems and pain that you weren't out to solve. But you're like, actually, this is a bigger opportunity, so I'm going to go do that. Right,
a whole house of pain.
Right, a whole house of pain that you could just solve. So listen, be transparent, and it's tough, man. Like startup world is tough. Just watching companies with funding and it's really, really, it keeps me up at night watching it, and I'm not even in it. So it's don't put all your eggs in one basket, whether that's a funding person you think is coming through or a certain partnership. Like just assume that things aren't going to work out, and then maybe you'll be surprised. That's the best advice I could see from that show.
Bruce?
Yeah, very similar, I'd say, in that set your expectations at a level where, you're not putting the entire company's future based on getting a deal done with us. It may not happen for various reasons, and if you've put all your eggs in that basket may come crashing down. So, I love that people view companies like ours as ones that could really propel their business, and they can in some cases, but I think your strategy needs to be a little more diversified.
And then the same question, but from the startup perspective, for those in the audience who are corporates who manage these kinds of relationships, from your experience, what do you think is the most important advice you could give about how to work well with a startup that really sets everybody up for success for both of you?
Well, my career has mostly been on the bleeding edge, and on the bleeding edge, corporations admittedly have different opinions inside them about how the bleeding edge. And when you do a deal with a bleeding edge company, you're making a bet, right? That their view of the world is the right one as opposed to a couple other ones. You don't have to have all your eggs in one basket, but don't try to make them, if they're coming in saying we're spades and we don't believe it's hearts or diamonds, don't try to, morph them into a conglomerate of those, right? You're going to make a bet that they're right. And that's really the startup's biggest advantage is being right. I mean, that's what wins, right? And it's not that there's only one right answer, but I've seen corporates try to sort of mush it all around sort of make everyone happy. Don't do that.
I would say be prepared to spend time with the actual business units. So if I get an introduction to that station, I'm going to, take you off that email. I'm going to grind, it out, whatever it is, get them set up, make sure it's success, and then sort of hopefully report that success back to my corporate partner with the hope that he or she will kind of now roll me out across the nation, around the world, or whatever. But that's, you don't want to be on every last email about, somebody resetting their password for the demo site, right? So, a lot of that kind of, we have to be careful with our corporate's time, knowing that you have another job that you're supposed to be doing that's not related to my startup.
Well, we appreciate all the startups for daring to try to solve problems that otherwise wouldn't get solved, and we appreciate the corporate partners who pour the lighter fluid on to bring those to the market and make them big. So please join me in thanking all of our panelists for sharing their experiences. Thank you. Yes.
The SPROCKIT Award ceremony in just a couple minutes. We're going to give some time to set up, and then everybody can come on over here. And then after that, we're going to celebrate hitting $1 billion in capital raised by our startups over in the SPROCKIT Hub.
So it's a completely different, the whole event is sort of tilted that way. And so South Upper Lawn, it's also deceptive because that hall is this one's really different. There he is.
Congratulations.
Oh, you got a haircut and everything, man. You do that right before? Had to clean up. You look good.
Did you see the game last night?
Oh.
How'd you pull that off?
The back hat. How'd I pull it
out?
off? Oh, yeah. No, we had a dinner.
Right.
Just checked in. It was really good.
Where'd you watch it?
I met some people at the public house in the place. That's great. Had a big bunch of tickets, so that was nice. I was the only one rooting for my team.
Really? Everywhere we were, it was that.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I think, the people in this area, they know where Texas is. We have no clue. So, never heard of it. But, there were a lot of Texas ones. How's it going?
It's good. Raised over $1 billion.
Well, you see it.
Great. Awesome. I saw the release and all that good stuff.
Everyone was kind to us in the press release, and it was nice.
Good. Great. I may have sent somebody your way. I'm not sure if she's going to come over or not, but one of our partners on here, or the co-located manager, is she's brand new. She's relatively young with a lot of energy. So she was asking about this and some other stuff. And I said, well, you should go for up there, and if there's something we can do. Harry wants to do all kinds of stuff.
This is tough.
He wants to do 10 more of these.
No. I'm learning what you mean by don't ask what's making me smile.
Yeah. Yeah, all this stuff would be great if you didn't have to worry about customers and sponsors and all of those kinds of things.
I don't know how you've done this for 20 years. 20 years?
But anything longer than that overall. Yeah.
Actually, somebody I'm chatting to you about stuff is what's her name? Mary Dollar says hi.
Oh, she's great.
I'm trying to figure out how to do something with her.
That'd be awesome. Is she talking?
Yeah, she is. Okay. So we flown up to New York, she flew back. We're trying to think, you know what, Mary? I need real infrastructure.
You're in LA.
What's that?
And you moved West Coast?
No, I didn't move. I lived in the park of something.
But it's something still. Okay. Because she's going to come. Well, no, I'm sorry.
She said she's going to see you.
There's a thing in New York.
She's a rock star, right?
Yeah. No, she's great. She's done a keeping that thing going because it was on life support for a couple of years. Yeah. And yeah, she's done a nice job. So that'd be good. That'd be really good.
We'll see. We're talking about how can we do something together.